All right. I feel like, we're almost 5 minutes in. We've got a good crowd here. So let's dive in. You guys good with that?
Yeah, let's get into some of these synth updates first, and the upcoming Thor games and where we are with that.
Yeah. So let's start with synths then. Good call. So yeah, from the Nine Realms and network side, I'll give a little update on synths. So for those of you guys who are new, a little bit of background. When THORChain ships new features, one of the questions we've been asking, late last year is like, how do we really test these things out and get the community? We've got a really sharp community. How do we get everybody involved in basically making sure this stuff is battle ready and ready for mainnet? And so what we rolled out last year was StageNet, which was kind of the proving grounds for new chain connections and things like that. But it also opens up the ability for us to do new types of economic games. And so synths are one of the major features. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with synths, but maybe Chad or THORChain, you guys can give a little bit of just an overview of what synths are. But I'll give a quick high level. Synths are synthetic assets that can be created from your LP position on the network, which trade at much faster speeds. So you can swap Bitcoin, things like that. And if you ever need to resolve out, you can resolve down to the native layer one asset. But what this should do is really speed up the volume and transaction capabilities of THORChain. So it's a really big feature for the network. And one of the questions is, how do we actually test this out? So we're going to be doing the first, basically Thor games is what we're calling them. But between the core team and Nine Realms and a bunch of ecosystem partners, Broker, THORSwap, and a bunch of others, we've got queued up is basically an economic game where people can start testing on banging on synths on StageNet. And so what this will allow people to do is to use actual live interfaces. So, you can go to THORSwap or you can go to Broker, you can mint synthetics, and you can try to basically game the system or break it on StageNet. And what that'll let us do is we'll be announcing a lot more details next week, and we'll go live with the Thor games next week as a network. But just for everybody who's on this call, you kind of have a little bit of a preview of what's coming. We'll be releasing details in terms of what the rewards are. There'll be some, hefty economic remuneration for people who are involved and actually are able to break it. But yeah, that's what's coming down the pipe. So next week, in terms of one of the major features of THORChain that'll be moving a lot of volume through the network over the course of this year, the first aspects of that are going live, and we've got a brand new test bed.
Yeah, super exciting. Cool to bring in the broader community to get to bang on things and be incentivized to do so. And yeah, like you were saying, to zoom out a bit, I mean, the excitement around synths is that this is going to lay the framework for things like single-sided yield and in the future borrowing and lending on all these different assets, and then also, like you said, almost like an L2, like the ability to swap between all of these assets at super fast, low fee, because they're just represented on the THORChain network, backed by the LP positions. So definitely something that everyone has been very excited for a long time, and now we're in literally the home stretch. We're on StageNet and the games are about to begin. And then what would you say after, maybe if you had to put an estimate on how long like the games last until there's sufficient testing, what are we thinking there?
We're at least probably I'd say at a max probably 2 weeks, at a min at least a week, so probably somewhere in there. Otherwise, it's like you can really get a good focused push. And the fact that we're opening it up to the public and saying, hey, go and hit on these websites, and that doesn't mean that a lot of work hasn't been done behind the scenes. So it's not like we're just starting to take a look at this. A lot of foundation has been laid to open up this as the first like public Thor games.
Right. This is just like the final testing layer to make sure nothing possibly slipped through the cracks. It's not like the first time it's ever been tested.
Exactly. And another piece of this on the synth side that's kind of exciting is this will be a big piece of composability for THORChain, because since we can export them, they'll be Cosmos-based assets, but the fact that you can resolve those down into native Bitcoin or native ETH, that's a really great thing. And then we can also export those to different markets using IBC. So synths going live is a really key feature. Pretty stoked to get it out.
Yeah, on that's a question I've been seeing a lot. So it'd be good to zoom in on that for a second, if we could. Like, are the synths going to be exportable, like from the launch, or is that something that we're going to be waiting on? Because I know a lot of people are excited to see synths and even Rune like go out on IBC.
Yep. So they won't be exportable on launch, but that's just a natural part of the roadmap of synths. It'll be a nice way for THORChain's assets to start to migrate into other ecologies.
Awesome. So it sounds like that wouldn't be something, it's probably relatively soon after, like it's not,
I won't give a
major hurdle.
timeline, but it's
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I won't give a timeline,
Awesome.
but it's very straightforward. And again, like one of the major benefits of synths is what THORChain offers is the fact that once you have that synth, you can resolve that down into native Bitcoin. You can't really do that anywhere else in the ecosystem right now, and that's just that's kind of a mind blower. So there again, like we were talking this morning, there's a lot of education around what THORChain actually offers that most people are just unaware of unless you're very familiar with it. But some of the things that we're going to be turning on are going to make it very obvious.
Yeah, very exciting. I feel like it's all coming together, and in the coming weeks and months, I feel like people are going to start waking up to what's actually possible here, and what's already not even possible, but what's already happening.
Yeah, yeah. It's like 21 was proving everything out, making sure it all works as expected, working out some of the core kinks, and now you're going to just see a lot of development, scaling, shipping of the things that we've been talking about for a while. Which, yeah, it's a good season.
Hey, Gavin, would you mind talking for a second about what the effect of synths will be on the network? Exactly, like how will the experience change from synths going live after all the Thor games and stuff have been completed?
Yeah, good question. So probably the most noticeable thing will actually be the speed, just the speed of resolving your trades, right? So now people outside the ecosystem who have been hesitant to use THORChain for it's going to take you X, Y, X to get your Bitcoin transaction confirmed, right? You've got these transaction times that are all kind of like idiosyncratic based on the different networks that are connected. Now we have a layer of resolution that's unified at the synth level. And it all resolves down to the native layer 1 assets. But we have these synths that are backed by this, which all move at the speed of whatever synth resolution is. And so that's going to be a major just boost to the network in terms of people who want to get involved who haven't, just because of the speed of like I said, the L1s. Once you have that L1 kind of foundation in place and the Bifrost and just these pieces that are observing and moving transactions, once you lift all that up a level to something that's unified like synths, then you can do some pretty amazing shit. Then you can do, like like I said, the most noticeable thing that'll be immediate is just now you can actually have, immediate, like almost you have 2-second finality on your trades. And so this will allow people to start using THORChain more programmatically to do some different things. So what this should be is a major mover for volume on the network as synths start to scale.
And that'll also trickle back to the underlying LPers, right? Because all of that additional volume through all of those, by simplifying and making trades much cheaper and faster, that entices a lot more volume. And all of that volume sits on top of the native assets in the pools, which boosts all of that. So it starts, and then the deeper the pool, the more enticing the pool is, the deeper that pool gets, which allows for more synth to be minted. Correct. So it's a great flywheel.
So this is a really nice piece. And again, like this design will mature, but the base pieces are really nice. And like I said, this week's market conditions might be a nice stage to talk about so if you think about the yield on THORChain, it's sustainable and it is sound. The economic design is very functional. And when you think about like an LP position, you can think about synths as stacking yield on top of the existing just base position, because again, all that volume just starts to drive that. So that's a lot of how we think about it over here, is just like, how do you just keep stacking yield onto a given position without stacking a lot of risk on top of it as well. And so synths are a really nice design from that standpoint, because, as you mentioned, a lot of different players can get involved now from single-sided exposure, but also then you get these benefits of increased volume, which again trickle down to the original LP position. So it's a really nice way to just like juice a little bit more out of one position.
And I should mention that we also have Orion from Nine Realms up on the stage as well.
Hey, Orion.
Welcome. Orion. What's up?
Hey, good morning, everyone. GM, I wanted to just add to what Gavin was saying around synths. So synths also change the LP position a little bit as well. So because synths are kind of this dynamic unit of account in the network, we end up having more yield going to LPs, but it's also kind of a leveraged position. So like as things, as your pool performs well, you get more of that reward, but then it also goes the other way. So there's going to be a bit of education that will happen around like, what does it mean to hold an LP position in THORChain, and what is the proportion of synths to pool depth that can be created and what the trade-offs are. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, that brings up a good point, which would be great to highlight, is how maybe we could describe like what the maximum synth amount versus pool depth is, because like that's going to be capped, right? So this isn't going to be like the volume can't just go to infinity immediately. Like it's capped by the pool depth, right? So can we touch on that a bit?
Sure. So the idea with capping the kind of a amount of synths proportional to the depth of the pool is to make sure that we keep the kind of economic system safe. Initially, things will get rolled out into a very small proportion of the pool, like 1%, then 5%, and then gradually increase. And then I think that the maximum is around 33%, and that will be for just the deepest kind of most secure pools. So think like Bitcoin and ETH. And I think that there's some good conversation happening right now around, allowing node operators to kind of vote on, which pools have, can have different sorts of caps, based on that kind of risk. But just to kind of summarize all of that, I think that there's a big education push that we can put forward, so everybody understands all the moving pieces here, so that node operators and the community can kind of, make some educated decisions.
Absolutely. Yeah, we definitely hope to put out a lot of content from THORswap. I'll crank some videos once I make sure I fully understand everything myself. Anything else to touch on synths before we kind of move to the next subject?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Orion, add to this one, but like, we'll go live with more information next week, but the community banging on synths across the interfaces and really trying to game the hell out of it. This is the first time we can do this. So it'd be great to get some really good feedback on this one. So my request would be like, everybody who's interested in the economics of this thing, now you can get really hands-on in a new way. Please do.
Yeah, it's probably also important to call out that the values and stuff on StageNet are different and all of that. So it's not something to use as a real thing, but to play around with small amounts and to try to game it, right?
Yeah, 100%.
I do have a question that I think a lot of people are probably thinking right now. Where's the best spot to look at to get information when it comes out? So like when the games are live, since they're live, like finding all this information is, it's sometimes like a point of friction for people here. So where is it that people should be looking for all the newest information on when these features go live and all the, benefits, drawbacks, things of that nature? Where should people look?
Yeah, we'll make a push to get things out on THORChain Twitter. There will also be a kickoff call in the dev Discord related to the synth war games, or Thor games for synths. And that will kind of give folks some initial context. And then over time, the community will work on some educational material as well. So stay tuned for that.
Awesome. Thanks, Orion. I guess we could start talking about the aggregator now, which is something that has just come to light. Like, it doesn't feel like that long ago, but it just seems like it's a very exciting topic because, well, all of us are bullish on cross-chain swaps, but cross-chain long tail to another cross-chain long tail. What exactly does that mean for THORChain? What is a DEX aggregator, and what is it that we're trying to do with that?
So I'll give a little bit of color on what it can do. So what we're giving people is basically the ability to use, here's so some of the driving things of how we're thinking about THORChain this year are, now that we're laying the foundation, what are the things you really want to do? Well, you want to increase security, so bond. You want to increase then the volume and the volume moving through the network and the depth of the pools. So with those three kind of like focus points, you can think of the aggregator or these DEX aggregators as something that's going to move a lot of volume through THORChain. And so aggregators are basically, it's like you can do any asset in, and then you can allow a smart contract to do some custom logic on the back end when an asset comes out. And so, for example, imagine that there's an ETH DeFi protocol that is very interested in Bitcoin, and they're based around Bitcoin. And maybe what they can do is they can now accept native Bitcoin, and you can basically deposit. So from their perspective, from the user perspective, or from that protocol's perspective, you can deposit now native Bitcoin and pop out the other side into a a yield bearing position that now holds, some wrapped Bitcoin. But either way, what happened was that the user came in, they have native Bitcoin in their wallet, they're able to deposit native BTC, and then they get some, yield bearing Bitcoin instrument in whatever that protocol is. And so now you have the ability for these custom interfaces, or, for folks showing up, or users, to start working with assets, like native layer 1 assets that they've never had the ability to work with, to start going into yield bearing instruments in other networks that they never possibly have been able to do. So the aggregator is basically this pattern that allows contracts on the back end to do some custom logic, which really can integrate THORChain into their product in a new way. So it's a pretty killer feature. We're just starting to kind of understand what it can do and talking to some protocols in the back end, but those are the basics.
Yeah, it feels like it'll be a key feature in the ability to abstract away all the complexity, right? Because this is going to mean that you only really have to sign one transaction to kick off a cascade of things happening in the background. But over time, that could mean, like there's a Terra product that's offering staking on a CW20 token or whatever, and you could just approve Bitcoin, and then it goes through all of that, and then suddenly you're all the way into that contract. But on some front end, maybe that was as simple as one click, essentially, right?
Exactly. And this is also a place where, like, that's a great point. There's also a place where custom experiences and products can be built at the user level, where it's like, maybe in the same way that, you want to focus on a given network, like just Terra or just Doge or whatever. Now you can focus on a given asset and a given output, right? You could say, hey, I want to focus a product on just native Bitcoin users, and offer to them the highest yielding products on the other side. And what you do is you just write aggregators out the back end that could connect to the best products, right? It'd be like a very simple thing to do there. But yeah, the aggregator basically makes it it's a really nice way to focus on kind of custom experiences using THORChain as rails that kind of get abstracted away into the background.
Yeah, I love that. It could be positioned just for Bitcoin, and you have a whole menu of options on that particular interface, or on existing apps, they just offer the ability to come in from any other asset rather than having to go through various swaps on different platforms just to get in the door. This is kind of like something they can integrate to bring anyone in, or a site could aggregate a whole menu of options for users coming from Doge, coming from Terra, coming from BTC.
Exactly. This also kind of dovetails into the point about wallets too. But yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah, I think, and we could shift to that. Or is there? Well,
if there's questions, or if we want to dive deeper on this, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely open to audience questions at the end. From my end, Miller, do you have any questions on the aggregator?
Yeah. So at first, is this planning to be like a full feature set where basically you'd have like Uniswap and SushiSwap and all of these other chains integrated as well? Or is this going to start out as like an ERC20 aggregator? Or like, is there a plan for how this is going to go down?
Yeah. So, I mean, the initial contracts are out. We're having conversations behind the scenes with a couple of early protocols to just understand, integrations and needs from their perspective. But in the ETH ecosystem, basically everything is ready to go from the contract perspective. So, you can take a look on GitLab; things are up there. As soon as Terra is connected, we'll be able to do long tail assets on that network as well. So it winds up becoming this like really nice piece of architecture and composability. So everything you can start. If you have a protocol, or if you have a protocol in mind that you think should use THORChain as rails, and maybe there's a native asset that it wants to work with, like, let us know, get in touch, and we'll start talking with you, because the basics are there.
Yeah, it'll of course be super exciting to see these other platforms integrating it, but that's kind of on them to agree to integrate it. I guess from our ecosystem lens, it'll of course be, THORSwap and stuff like that are going to have this available. But yeah, if it ends up on major other platforms that we're all familiar with, then that is really going to be the holy grail, which it sounds very likely.
That'll be part of like just the network development, push behind the scenes, is making it like just a no-brainer for when you show up at a major DEX aggregator. You can just deposit Bitcoin and get something else out, right? You can start very, very simple with the base asset that we're working with. And so that'll be probably one of the major pushes, is just get the basics covered.
Yeah, that's what I can't stop thinking about, is that you're really going to be putting yourself at a disadvantage if you don't integrate something like this at a point. Like once it kind of gets rolling and some people are doing it, then, why would you want to have a lesser feature set when you could plug this in and have all of this other access to liquidity from other chains and all this composability? Would just be a disadvantage not to, right?
Well, yeah, and it's that the thing is, like, none of this is speculative. The largest trades in the world still run through BTC, right? So you're opening up to the largest market in the world by just working with one asset. You know what I mean? And by working with that one asset, then by default, you're going to be connected to all other assets if you'd like. But either way, all we got to do is just get the wedge in there. And the wedge, again, it's the most economically significant trade in the world in crypto right now. So we've got a decent argument, but now it's just about kind of like nailing some of these integrations and getting it out there.
Yeah, 100%. Just to kind of give like a one-liner of the importance, it's like, this is allowing you to just go from anywhere to anywhere in one transaction. And that's such an obvious game changer versus like sending through a million different things, or even with existing aggregators right now, you still have to approve a bunch of transactions. Things can get stuck somewhere in the middle and you don't know what's going on. Whereas with this, it's just going to be like, oh, I have BTC and I want to route all the way to an obscure ERC20 or an obscure CW20, or in the future, whatever other chains are integrated, then, that'll mean signing a single transaction and boom, it's sent to your wallet on that completely other chain that historically was completely inaccessible from a starting point like Bitcoin.
Yeah, and this is like, we could spend the whole call on this, right? This is a absolutely killer feature. Like, this is just a sweet, like, you ever do that where you just like you're signing a transaction, then the next transaction pops up, then the next transaction pops up, because you just gotta, like, this changes the experience. It also changes the capability, like, all in one shot. So if it sounds like we're excited about this, it's a pretty killer feature.
Yeah, no, I genuinely think this is one of the most exciting things coming to THORChain, and it seems like it's it wasn't obvious. Like, we've all been looking for synths and for Terra for quite a while, but then this aggregator was kind of like, oh wow, like this is going to gain a lot of the spotlight, because this could be the killer feature that allows it, like THORChain, to hide on the back end on a lot more places. Like, it really seems to help abstract away the complexity.
Bingo.
Yeah, I'd also add, just as a call to action for the community, if you're a builder on a different platform, reach out to chat with us. We're happy to help you interface with the aggregator, or get something spun up for your particular chain.
Yeah, and a good something to hit on here is these like everything here is in the early stages, so we still need to bang on this from a lot of perspectives. We need to throw some heavy auditing at these things. Just keep pushing the limits on, or keep pushing on security on this pattern. So it's the very early days. Things are working. We're talking with protocols, but just kind of like to throw a little bit of like a flag up of like, hey, this is early. We've still got to do a bunch of work on these, but the pattern itself and all the features we're describing, what it unlocks, that is very real. But it's the early days. So again, for builders, don't hesitate to reach out. It'd be great to just start collaborating with you guys and to start putting some real world examples out there.
Awesome. I think it'd probably be a good time to transition to the next subject. It might make sense to do just the quick Luna updates while we're talking about the upcoming things, like since I know there might not be anything hugely revolutionary since last week, but just to kind of go over what's on track there, I think people would be excited to hear.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one. So the kind of current state of play is, Luna is being integrated on StageNet. As everyone is aware, the next step is writing a lot of different tests to improve the coverage, so that we have total confidence in the implementation. So that's kind of the current effort is around that testing and validation. And just as an aside, if you're ever looking to get involved in a project, just start writing tests, because that's sorely needed for a lot of things. So anyway, that's kind of the current state of play there. And then what will happen next is, after the set of tests are written, then we'll bang on it a little bit more, and then kind of open it up to the next steps in terms of the run book to moving it on to ChaosNet.
Sweet. Thanks, Orion. Definitely looking forward to seeing all the new chains come up online. It's something that the community has just really been buzzing for. And you can kind of feel it with how many people are just talking about, being able to interact with Luna on THORChain. The Dash community has been, really hyped about getting Dash up. And like there's other people too that are very excited to see their chain of choice on THORChain. So thanks for giving us an update on that. Yep. Chad?
I just kind of want to reiterate, I think this Terra integration especially is just so exciting for the community, for both communities, for the THORChain community and the Terra community, because there's such an obvious synergy between the two. And there's a lot of just philosophical parallels between the two projects, and both have very interesting tokenomics, and like there's a lot of overlap. And then the way these just synergize, like I'm from a personal level very excited for this one. And just to all the lunatics, like definitely give this a good look and help your lunatic friends to see what's going on here, and to see how this really brings a ton to both ecosystems. Because like we were saying on the aggregator stuff, and that's kind of like the core THORChain thing here, is like this means all these other assets can easily have access to the Terra ecosystem, but it also means that now UST can interact with Doge, Bitcoin, whatever, like all these various things on THORChain, and that's just huge. And it can be a huge use case for UST, and then that also helps build THORChain's liquidity pool depth, which is kind of like where Rune accrues value. So it really is like a match made in heaven.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just a little anecdote. When Pluto messaged me a couple weeks ago and was like, "Yo, I need some Luna," I was just like, vibrating with excitement, and had to slow down and get everything set up for to send it over. But yeah, we're super excited, and yeah, believe me, we're pushing as hard as we can to make this happen in the right way.
100%. Well, we're in the home stretch. Like it's on StageNet. Bit of testing, bit of making sure everything is good to go, and then everyone's going to be able to use it. Super exciting. Cool. Yeah, I'd say that's probably good on Luna. We're all ready for that. Let's touch on probably Orion. I think you had added this one, the wallet integrations, like what's missing there, what's coming. BTC ledger integration, I know is a hot topic that a lot of people are waiting for. Yeah, thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. So I'll give a quick update, and then I can hand it over to Gavin on this as well. But the kind of gist of it is that we've heard from a lot of different people in the community that are interested in LPing with Bitcoin specifically, that the lack of ledger integration on the various front ends is a big blocker. So kind of the focus across the ecosystem is, how do we help all of, everybody make sure that they have ledger support, and that's prioritized. And then, getting, whether it's devs or other resources that folks need in order to get that prioritized, and making sure that they have those resources. And I think that this is wallet integrations more broadly is just a big piece of this next step. The kind of current pattern of being very reliant on key stores, I don't think is the long-term kind of sustainable path. And so yeah, bringing more wallet integrations on is a major priority to drive both kind of LP depth and swap participation. So that's kind of the focus.
Cool. And would you expect that would say for Doge, I know that was kind of one of the less than perfect parts of the Doge launch, is that you can only use a key store. So would you, because those are similar, would that also mean Doge ledger support probably at basically the same time?
I'm not sure on the Doge side, to be honest. I don't know. Gavin, do you have any insights there?
Yeah, those two aren't directly related. So not specifically, but that's kind of like what Orion's pushing at is one of the thrusts of where we as a network need to make some headway this year, which we'll start to focus on, which is wallet integrations. Because if you think about it, from the protocol north, through middleware and through the application layer, even at the application layer, say you're building a custom aggregator, right? And you have like this interface in this app that you're building that allow people to deposit X, into some position Y. You still have to resolve into the wallet piece. The wallet piece is like where UX is always eventually pushed. And right now, the wallet experience for single chain is still a pretty mixed bag, right? There's a few really good experiences, but people are still relatively confused. And then when you start to throw multi-chain in, you can count the really good multi-chain experiences on one hand, probably on, maybe one finger. But, from that perspective, there's a ton of work to be done. And so now that we've, like I said, you lay the foundation work, get the protocol working, but now you start to see the bottlenecks in the ecosystem of what allows people to really start using things, and multi-chain wallet experiences that are solid, that are connected, is one of the pieces where we'll start to put some efforts.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I know that everyone will really appreciate it once these different wallet integrations are online, especially all the Ledger stuff. Being on a hardware wallet is an important security measure for anyone that's here, and I'm sure everyone is very excited to be able to interact with THORChain using their hardware wallet, especially for Bitcoin, which is just the biggest thing that's connected to THORChain that's not really connected anywhere else. There's a huge advantage there in being the first to connect to the largest instant finality liquidity network in the world. So it is incredible once these hardware wallets come online. Then there's just a more secure way to do it. No more key stores, and that's very exciting.
Yeah, and also to note, if anyone is maybe newer, hasn't used it, but you already can use Ledger with most chains with THORChain. Just to clarify that, it's mainly, I think Bitcoin is the elephant in the room here that needs to be solved in the Ledger department. But you can do it you can use native THORChain Rune on Ledger. You can even add asymmetrically to pools. So a lot of it is here. But yeah, that bolder step of Bitcoin Ledger integration is definitely going to be huge, especially for those big Bitcoin holders that are very wisely, very security focused. So yeah.
I do have a question here. I was thinking, are these integrations coming at like the interface level? Are these coming from THORswap and say all this development will happen on THORswap and it'll be accessible there? Or how exactly is the team integrating all these wallets? Sorry, I'm not familiar with the technical end of how these things happen. So how exactly, where does a new wallet get integrated? Will it immediately be available on say XDeFi wallet or some of the other wallets that people in this ecosystem use?
So if you there's not an easy answer there because it differs, right? Sometimes the product itself can integrate it, right? Because you obviously have support for Bitcoin on Ledger and Trezor, things like that. But it's, if you think about it, the products and then the networks on an X and a Y axis and where their intersection is, then you have there's even depth at each intersection point in terms of what interface chooses to support which network. And so there's really not a clean answer. It's more kind of you focus on where you have leverage and where you want to start to move the needle. And so, there's not really a sweeping answer for oh, this is exactly who does what and how it goes. It's kind of a messy landscape in terms of where UX and where hardware wallets meet. And so you're kind of working across the board, whether it's an installed wallet or whether it's the UI that needs to support something and they decide to do it. So yeah, it's kind of all over the board.
Yeah. Would you mind actually just speaking on a second about how the overall development process works? Because it's probably very unlike most things that people are picturing, some kind of decentralized protocol that then interfaces with all these other decentralized team front ends. It is messy, from the outside looking at how all this stuff works. Would you be able to speak a little bit more on how that process works?
Yeah, and I mean, let's think about it from the ground up. The ground up and why everybody's here is THORChain, right? So THORChain being the fundamental L1 protocol that makes these swaps possible. So, if you strip everything else away, you've got the foundation level protocol, which is where we focus, which is where the core team focuses. And that's just where that's where the efforts really need to be in terms of security and all these things, just to make the basics work. If you have none of that, you have nothing, nothing on top of it can be built. Now, assuming you have the base layer, then the question is all right, so what's the ecology that's going to tap into that base layer and actually drive volume through the pools, drive depth, allow people to deposit assets and things like that? Because what you can assume is once you have a base protocol that delivers on the promises, you'll have big actors who can get in there and programmatically do things using a CLI or, doing things at scale, at speed, a little more technically. You'll always have those players, but that's a minority. Even though that minority can drive a lot of volume and a lot of depth, it's still not exactly the full ecosystem you want to develop. So as you move north in the stack, that's when things get a little more complicated, right? You have applications. And so the applications are what you really want really tight relationships with. You want really collaborative teams that understand the nature of the protocol. And we have a bunch of those in the THORChain ecosystem. So from that standpoint, the application layer, that's developing really, really well. And the teams that are building in the multi-chain DeFi space, holy shit, they're amazing, right? They're kind of, they're at the edge of where crypto is from a multi-chain. We're building a decentralized, Binance or a Coinbase, making a really good user experience there in a way where people have, control over their assets. This is just kind of this is the edge of where things are at. Like I said earlier, really good experiences on single chain are just starting to emerge. And so multi-chain, it's still the early days. And so once you're at the application layer, assuming you have a team that's really collaborative, then you've got to push even north from the application into the wallet, right? How are people actually interacting with the application? And that's where you get into different wallets, right? You have browser plugins, you have hardware wallets, you have just a variety of ways to interact with an application. And so, it's like I said, if you have the bases covered at the base level of the protocol, then you're able to shift your focus or divert efforts to start collaborating with teams at the wallet and application level. And as a protocol, protocols can choose to do it any number of ways, right? You could just focus on the protocol and let the ecosystem develop around you and hope that people plug in. But in this case, on the THORChain side, and from THORChain 9 Realms, just like the people who are focused on the protocol, part of our perspective is let's go help the ecosystem develop, because that can really help move some of the key needles for us. And so we wouldn't have to do that, but this is actually just what I think part of what makes the THORChain ecosystem a really sound ecosystem is that we have a really close working relationship all the way through that stack from the ground up. And that allows us to create really solid experiences, even if they're just the beginning experiences. But as those relationships develop, as the teams that are north of the protocol understand what's coming down the line in terms of synths, things like that, you can create the conditions for us to be able to even roll out something like a war games. Because if we had no relationships like that, you can't do those types of things. And so having really good relationships, all the way through the stack is kind of what's happening here. That's a long-winded answer. Sorry.
No, thanks. I think that's it's an important point, because I think a lot of people don't exactly they think THORChain is just kind of one entity, and there is this this being that's doing what it's doing. But in reality, there's so many different teams that are collaborating on different levels and doing different things, and all are contributing in their own way to a broader ecosystem, not just to one product, which is THORChain, but more one team is working on this back end, the other people are working on these front ends, other people are working on these wallets, and then people on the core team are working on features that will then be able to integrate with the other teams. And it's different than anything else, kind of in the world. Because anywhere else, say this was at Google or something like that, it would all be an internal team with an organized leadership structure that functions in this particular way to ship out the product in this time frame with this feature set. But it's all just kind of individual teams working towards a common goal.
Well, it's individual teams, but there's we on the 9 Realms side, we've been we do a lot of coordinating with a lot of these folks. And so, it does require coordination and collaboration, but that's, again, to say it again, this ecosystem and the teams that are working here, we've been working together for the better part of a year. We've worked through some major bumps in the road, and we've also worked through some really great times. And so the relationships that are kind of at the core of this are really good, which allows for us to do these things that we're doing.
Thank you, guys. Is there anything else you guys wanted to touch on before we let people on stage and start opening up to questions? We had Thor wallets here too, if they want to provide an update. Anyone that wants to speak, just request to speak right now while we hear some other remarks.
Yeah, I just had one thing I wanted to make clear. So for Bitcoin Ledger support specifically, that's on the front ends at this point. So if you're a front end and need support, please reach out. Here to support that effort, however I can.
Yeah, on that, from the user perspective, it does feel like XDeFi is taking a bit of a lead. Like, I know it's on their roadmap that they put out, I think for March at the latest, maybe even February. But and that's obviously a great way to interact with THORChain, just because you have all your different chain addresses right there in one wallet. So definitely a good first step to getting a lot of those Ledger people on board.
Yeah, I think February is when Bitcoin integration is happening for them.
Perfect. Awesome. Yeah, I wasn't sure if February or March, but soon, very soon. Cool. We have some speakers up here for questions. Let's start with Kenton. How's it going?
Can you hear me now?
Hello? Yeah, you're good.
Yep. Okay. Sorry, just bear with me on this question. It's kind of like a multi-part question. It's about THORify. So like with Anchor right now, there's talk about how there's more savers and borrowers, and they might need to bump up the reserves to make good on the interest. I'm just curious how that eventually works out, and how it's gonna work on THORify if we provide single-sided staking or pooling or whatever for crypto, and it's collecting a fixed interest. My understanding is the pool yield then becomes variable and kind of acts like as the release valve. And I'm just wondering if on THORify, instead of having a fixed interest on the single-sided savings, what if that interest is variable in relation to the borrowers? And so just like on the liquidity pools and the bonds, we have an incentive pendulum. If there's too much crypto in the pools, the yield goes towards zero and the bond yield goes up. On THORify, what if we had incentive pendulum? So if there's more savers and borrowers, the yield on the savers goes down, and therefore the yield on borrowing goes down, which attracts borrowers. So instead of having the liquidity pools act as I'm trying to say, trying to support the single-sided savers. The single-sided savers and THORify kind of on their own with the borrowers, and the pools kind of stay insulated from that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. So just to be clear, the THORify implementation is still being finalized, and so there are moving pieces. Particularly around how we're managing the balance between savings and borrowing, as well as making sure that we have all kind of risk parameters covered. But one kind of current thought process in some of this is the concept of protocol-owned liquidity, which kind of acts as a buffer in some of that. And from the kind of idea around fixed interest for savers is kind of that's like a great user experience. So kind of by leveraging POL or the protocol and liquidity, the idea is that we would be able to kind of use that as cushion to maintain that fixed interest rate while the POL is accumulating value. And then, in conditions where there are, decreases in the kind of POL value those savers are insulated. So there's a few kind of moving pieces there, and I think that the notion around kind of balancing the savings and borrowing is really important, and something that we're considering.
So with the fixed yield on Thor savings, wouldn't that in turn make the single-sided savers, make them the first-class citizens of THORChain? Because now the whole THORChain network has to adjust to make that constant rate. And so it kind of takes away the emphasis on the liquidity providers as being first-class citizens, because now the liquidity providers are supporting the fixed-rate savers, which kind of, I guess where I'm coming at, if we try to introduce a constant, it makes the rest of the system more variable. and more vulnerable, doesn't it? Shouldn't it all be variable so it can all ebb and flow together?
Yeah. So I see where you're coming from. I think that there is a case to be made for that kind of variable interest rate. The idea was that is a strong user experience, but I think that initially, as we start to kind of finalize the design and roll this out, that interest rate will be a parameter that the network can tune, and kind of what we've kind of seen with Anchor specifically, that creates a lot of demand for that. And then, when we have a lot of savers, then we can have, the corresponding number of borrowers. But in kind of addressing the kind of LP as first class citizen, that doesn't change. The yield for savings is actually coming from the POL, in the kind of the current thought process. So there's a few more moving parts, and we'll as things get finalized, we'll share all of that so that everybody has the kind of same understanding of the system there.
Cool. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for all your work.
Yeah, you bet. Happy to discuss more. THORFi is a really killer feature here, and we want to make sure that we nail it right. Understanding all the moving pieces and the risks, I think, are top of mind right now.
Thanks, guys. Don't wrap your Bitcoin. Welcome to the stage.
Good evening, guys. My question is, when is THORnames going live, and when we're going to sell our domain name?
So it's so in terms of THORnames should be able to be rolled out pretty quick after we get some of these basic things. Like the immediate roadmap is new chain connection with THOReau. We've got Synth War Games going live. So once we get some of that worked through, I know THORnames will be somewhere on the horizon thereafter.
Thank you.
Hello, I have a question about the future of THORChain. Basically, I wanted to know if there are any plans to have maybe a DAO or some form of system to give governance to the Rune community, like people that hold Rune.
Yeah, this in terms of decision making as a community, this is definitely something we're gonna have to get to over time, right? So it started as a project, as the shape we all know. And one of the things, like, there's steps to this, to whatever decentralization looks like, or whatever community run networking looks like. And one of the first steps that you guys are probably seeing in the dev Discord is node operators are starting to talk a little bit more through the anonymous channels. And so node operators having control over key variables in network operation, node operators having anonymous conversation. But right now, as it stands, the first transition step in just like kind of moving to community run network, or at least the largest stakeholders and the key stakeholders having a say in things. The first transition point has been this kind of like node operator conversation that's ongoing, and them being able to flip Amir commands in the network itself. That's still the early days. It's not anything that's going to happen overnight. But beyond that, I think this will be an ongoing conversation for just us as a networking community to figure out how we want to do that and what that's going to look like. So, in terms of what's immediately in front of us, we've got to get the bread and butter right. The bread and butter being network fundamentals, chain connections, things like that. But something that is definitely on the radar that we, it's not too early to start the conversation is, what does that look like as this transition into something that's more of, more community involvement, more community decision making. So we don't have an answer right now, but that's also like just because the focus is on getting the basics of the network right. But it's definitely something that we're thinking about. Feel free to add anything else, you guys.
So what about the light nodes? Because you're mentioning nodes. I've been hearing people mention light nodes coming out for a while. Do we have any updates?
So light nodes right now the focus has been shifted. I don't know if you've been paying attention in the dev Discord. Some of the recent focus has been around bond weighted rewards. The point, and Orion, maybe you can add some color here if I'm missing anything, but the point of where the focus has been recently is scaling the network's bonds, scaling security, so we can start to, add more in. And so on the bond scaling side, there's been a lot of dialogue around that. Light nodes had been one of the approaches there, but light nodes also has a lot of we want to test things in as secure a manner as possible without changing a lot of things in the process, right? So we want to see if we can get to the end goal without having to do a lot of things to achieve that? What are the fewest changes we can make to actually get there? And so some of the changes that have been, with light nodes, that was one possible path. Another possible path for scaling bond has been bond weighted rewards and a few other things that we have in our pocket. So from that perspective, that was just one of the early approaches to solve a problem. And yeah, some of the first approach that's being taken, though, is something like bond weighted rewards.
Awesome. What would be the best place for community members to keep updated with THORChain?
Discord is by far the highest flow of communication.
Which server?
The dev Discord. I don't know if somebody, one of the hosts can pop in.
I'm already in it. Okay.
Oh, yeah. So, general channel, like the economics channels, good stuff, ChaosNet. But yeah, best place by far.
Okay, yeah, for everyone wanting their ear to the ground on what's going on in THORChain, that is an absolute gold mine of seeing it straight from the source. Just to clarify, like for the most part, myself too, like be a fly on the wall and kind of see what's going on, but that's not the one to ask, like, how do I LP or something like that. For that, you can go to LP University, THORswap Discord, other places. But yeah, THORChain Dev Discord, definitely get in there and just, be amazed at seeing the forefront of what's actually coming. So definitely good to be in there. Donku, good to see you up here. Go ahead with the question.
Yeah, thank you. And I just wanted to say also hi to you, right? I'm enjoying always what you're writing, how close you are, of course, to THORChain and also to the Terra ecosystem. I'm super excited to what you guys just discussed earlier, right? That Terra is finally also arriving on the THORChain network. I think that's amazing. As you guys said, it's just win-win for everybody. And I can't wait myself to provide some liquidity and do also content on this stuff. And that's basically also my biggest question, because I would enjoy myself to do more content on THORChain. And I texted you also in parallel chat. And I don't know the guy who was earlier in here. I think he was also one of the developers, because whatever you guys have in mind and you would like to share with me, as said, I would like to do content on Synth. I would like to do content on the LPing, and when the Terra network is finally also getting in contact with THORChain. So feel free to shoot me all the information you have. I heard right now that the dev Discord is the best place to get information, because I'm open with you guys. I'm struggling a bit to get the visibility on the information on THORChain, which I think is kind of not as cool enough as you guys deserve, because you are building amazing tech, right? So whatever you want to share, I'm happy to support, because I think it's just amazing to see what's happening.
Yeah, great. I'll definitely be in touch with you and coordinate. I'm in a similar boat. I'm helping THORswap make tutorials and stuff like that. So we can definitely coordinate together and make sure that all audiences have as clear of information as possible. So yeah, that sounds great. And definitely, again, yeah, the synergy between the two. I'm a lunatic as well, and just love to see it, and very exciting times ahead. And we'll all do our best to, this is so community driven, and like, yeah, you're right. Like there's not always a super clear source on stuff. But we're doing our best as a community to build those sources ourselves, with spaces and tutorials and articles. So yeah, we're all in this together.
Make sure you join the Discords, and also we've been trying to do like a lot of spaces, and me and Chad have been trying to do a lot of spaces, just talking with people, and because people have a lot of basic questions, and we come up here and talk about a lot of like, high level things about like what's happening in the future, but not so much focused on like what exactly the whole protocol is and what it's doing. And anyone here can get involved in, being someone that communicates these types of things. So make sure you go into the dev Discord, and let's, there's so many ways to get involved here, because literally everyone is hiring. All we want to do is grow this protocol, and, anyone here can step up and do that. So thanks, man.
Yeah, super stoked to hear. Love all the work that you do in the Terra ecosystem. I'd also say, yeah, just hop in the Discord and ask questions there. And I agree, the information flow is a bit chaotic, and we're working to try to streamline that. There's a lot of information out there on kind of, earlier implementations of things. And so trying to like refresh all of that, is an ongoing process. So yeah, reach out, ask questions, and, as you need resources, or folks that can give you a clearer picture of things, just let us know.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. I just followed everybody that I was not following here. And you can be sure that probably in the next 3 to 4 days, I'm reaching out because I said, congratulations to you guys. And yeah, you could say chaotic, but I think it's the strength of the Tor network, right? It's kind of amazing to see how all of this growed kind of through the community, right? I think Coinborough is kind of also a big fan of what you guys did here and developed. So there are a lot of people, I think, giving the attention that you needed. And I'm out so that others can speak.
Thanks. So we have Cryptic Girl. You joined the stage? Cryptic Girl, hello.
You're still muted. If bottom left, if you can unmute yourself. Or in the meantime, let's we've got THORwallet up here as well. How's it going, THORwallet?
Hi guys. Going good. How are you doing?
Doing well.
Awesome. Yeah, basically I just joined, listened, and then it asked me if I want to speak. So I just wanted to say hi to everyone. There is actually just this very second, I got a notification that a new test flight is out. So everyone using THORwallet, probably in the next couple of minutes, will get a notification to install the newest update.
All right, what's new with THORwallet? Like, I hear you guys are trying to be very quick in integrating Doge into THORwallet. What other kind of updates are you guys been doing? And like, what's the basics of like what is THORwallet? People who might not have heard of you.
Yeah, sure. So for the basics, those who haven't heard, we're an Android and iOS wallet, THORwallet X, so you can interact with THORChain through your mobile phone. The newest update that is coming out right now has basically just a lot of bug fixes done under the hood. So there are a bunch of edge cases, different kind of sequences. If you added liquidity symmetrically, then you withdrawn again the next time you want to add liquidity symmetrically, and all those kind of edge cases, how to interact and what to show to the end customers. I think now we have a pretty stable version, and also some ERC20 miscalculations we had before with fees, gas fees. They're all fixed, so pretty much everything under the hood now, hardening the core. That's what we focused on, and yeah, going forward, we're gonna have Doge integrated latest by the end of February, probably before. It shouldn't be too hard. Since it's very similar to other chains already integrated. That's it.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of chatter about THORwallet, especially on, like, I would say the less advanced platforms like Reddit and things like that. So I just want to say congrats for your guys' recent success, because it seems like a lot of people are reacting well to the wallet.
Nice. Yeah, what we have noticed is that, so we've grown now to around 7,000 to 300 downloads, and we haven't really kickstarted marketing yet, just tested a little bit. So it's basically organic growth, word of mouth, I would say. Very happy with that. And I call it like the growth should be planned, like a planned growth, where you can always iterate. The more people use your wallet, the more edge cases you find. Then again, you need time to harden it. So we're very happy with that. And we see that more and more people who are not familiar with THORChain download the wallet and start using it. Then hopping in our Twitter, asking some questions, in our Discord or Telegram, asking question, and we clearly then realize, okay, they don't know yet how THORChain works, how the pooling works, and so on. So that's very good. But now we have also shifted slightly the roadmap that we're going to implement, like FAQs in the website, but then also educational slides and screens in the wallet to basically onboard those clients better. So they know what they are doing, know the risk, know the rewards. That's actually what we are focusing on right now, getting them up to speed. and marketing obviously is being prepared underneath the hood. Sex listing as well, new features, Wallet Connect working on. So there's a lot of stuff going on. Very exciting.
Awesome to hear. It's exciting to hear the Doge integration is so soon, especially because as a mobile first wallet, that's especially friendly to a Doge user that is especially overwhelmed by something like a key store right now. So that's a good synergy to have such a friendly option available to newcomers that aren't familiar with, key stores and all this stuff, but could just have an app. That should be a great place to onboard those style of users. So great that you're catering to that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why we kind of switched now to a little bit more towards the education stuff at the beginning, the user onboarding. Like liquidity pooling actually means 50% exposure to Rune and stuff like that. They need to know what is impermanent loss and how they're protected with THORChain. So yeah, all those questions, we don't want to mislead them, right? It's just a matter of right now. Most of the users were familiar with that because they were from the THORChain ecosystem. So now you got to onboard the other ones too. Going to be exciting.
Sweet. Is there anyone else that wants to come up and ask questions to Thor Wallet, to Orion, or ask general questions about the ecosystem? Make sure you raise your hand. And this is also a good spot for ecosystem projects to come on and share what's going on in their projects and updates, and just generally just talk with the community, get exposure in that way. So make sure you guys are tuning into this weekly, because this is where people will be coming on, and it's a good platform to ask questions and really know what the people behind everything are thinking about and preparing for.
Looks like Bullskey is requesting again. Also, Cryptic Girl, if you want to give that another shot, if you had a question, feel free to try to unmute yourself. If not, Bullskey can go ahead.
Yeah, so I wanted to know, after all the bug fixes that the Thor Wallet app is going to have, what would be like exciting features that the team is thinking of?
You mean exciting features in the future?
Yes, like maybe
right?
things that we haven't seen before inside a wallet, or big.
Yeah, sure. So what we want to do first, right, is have everything just a smooth experience. No failed transactions. If there is a failed transaction, it should show exactly why it happened. But better even inform him beforehand what might happen. So all those core things, which are pretty complex in cross-chain, and then mobile, we need and want to nail them down. I think the version that is going to be out now in a couple of hours, that's going to be pretty close already. Then it's just, step by step. Having Wallet Connect as example gives the users a lot of more possibilities to connect, with the browser. It makes the wallet just overall more powerful. Integrating THOReau will be a game changer as well. If you have that one-click UST saving for 90.5% ready as well. Like, you have your Bitcoins, you swap them to UST, and then you click, and they're in the Anchor protocol. It's going to be very useful, and I think one of the most used features as well. There's so many things. Once the things are activated and you have cross-chain savings account, I really see cross-chain savings accounts as like a black hole. I mean, who wouldn't want to single side stake Bitcoin or any other layer one token who was outside of DeFi at those nice rates? You just need to get the awareness, and then it speaks for itself, like the interest rates you get. So it's step by step, just going to the vision to become like crypto.com or Coinbase or Binance, whatever you want to call it, app for DeFi. We already work on field on off ramp, but this is a longer term project we run on the side, as we want to have, the best possible solution, and there are various ways how you could accomplish it. I don't think they're huge, massive steps. They're all small steps, iterative, new versions coming, in a 2-weekly basis. And every time it gets better and stronger. But in 12 months from now, I think we're very close to the vision where we want to be.
Thanks. Let's see if we can get these 2 last questions. Orion has to go. So let's see. I think Crypto Girl came back up on stage if you want to ask your question quickly. So we can let Orion go. Or Crypto Surfer. Whoever gets it first gets to ask the last question.
Yep. We good?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, thanks, guys. I just wanted to kind of give you a perspective. I'm sure everybody in here, is very experienced in crypto, and so this will give you just a little bit of a different perspective. So my first investment was actually in the THORChain system, and I'm involved in various ways. But one of the things that I've kind of struggled with, personally, has just been the complexity of the system, and so kind of educating and so on. So I've been all over Twitter and just kind of see how the education and getting the word out and making it accessible for the retail investor and for the person who's not a pro, with crypto. And I got to tell you, and this is a shout out to Thor Wallet. When that came out, to me, that really helps with accessibility to THORChain and kind of making it a simple user experience. And so I just wanted to kind of voice my bullishness on Thor Wallet and kind of improving the accessibility, to people that may not fully understand, liquidity pools and all the complexities of THORChain. So that's it. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks a lot too.
Cool. Thanks, guys. And thanks, Orion, for coming out, and Chad for hosting. I just want to say real quick that I'm Familiar Cow, and I run a project called Veneer Threads. I make NFTs that are redeemable for a real life custom made THORChain sneaker with all the accessories and stuff. So I pinned it up on top if anyone here is interested in checking it out if you haven't heard of it already. It's Veneer Threads, and we make Thor Force 1, the coolest sneaker in the ecosystem. So thanks everyone for coming out. We do these weekly, so make sure that you tune in, and if you can't make it, check out the recaps which are posted on Runebase after the episode's over.
Thanks to Nine Realms for all the great answers and all the great questions from the audience. And we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah, and we're going to try and host more non-weekly shows as well, like try and have people on. I know Thor Wallet had people from the Doge community on just as kind of like a mixer where you could hear people from that community, and then the THORChain people can talk, and we can all learn from each other, right? So we're going to try and do more shows and not just the weekly things. So keep an eye out for that in the future. And anyone here can organize their own things as well, and invite other community members. Will show up.
There's also a THORswap space today, 6 Eastern. So another chance to get involved and hear what the community is up to. But echoing Familiar Cow as well. Like, we're gonna just do more, just like some casual hangout sometimes. Yesterday we just kind of chatted THORChain and other things for a while. So let's just we're all kind of in the community together, and like we can all contribute to this thing. So you can feel free to point people to us, questions, and we'll keep this all going.
If you're here and you're curious, join the THORChain Dev Discord. I linked it up in the pinned tweets up above. So check that out. Join there. Be a fly on the wall there, and that's where you can really see what's going on in development. That's where me and Chad go to see what's going on, and you can actually see the conversations of the developers saying like, "Hey, we're working on this right now," or like, "This isn't working," or things like that. It's really cool, like a window into development of like a critical crypto infrastructure project, which is just amazing. So Rune Ranger coming on at the very last second as we're wrapping up, but thanks for coming. Have anything else to say, Chad? We could just wrap it up.
No, I think this is a good place to wrap up. Thanks to everyone